Coach PJ here. Are you ready to hire an assistant? Are you thinking maybe a virtual assistant is in your future? I use virtual assistants regularly. I've used them for over 7 or 8 years, and I have had tremendous luck with virtual assistants. And some would say it's not luck at all. There's a certain way in which to engage with virtual assistants and a way to hire them, a way to use them, a way to be successful with them. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I do to be successful with a virtual assistant. I have had probably 6 or 7 over the last 7 or 8 years. And when I have them, unless something's changing, I keep them. I had one for 5 years, and it was a great relationship. She changed her business model, so I had to change virtual assistants. But it's a great relationship. I'm a believer that if you have a really good virtual assistant and you have them doing tasks that are taking them off your plate, that the ideal for me in a virtual assistant is that you don't even have to talk with them, because they know the work that has to get done. They know how to do it. They know how to complete the work. The communication is seamless. And not that I don't want to talk to them, but it isn't necessary, because all the expectations are laid out. The work gets done. I don't have to worry about it. It's completely off my head. It's not anything I worry about on a regular basis. So let's start with a couple of things. First, be realistic. There are things that are good for a virtual assistant and things that are not good for a virtual assistant. If, in my mind, a virtual assistant is great for tasks that you understand how they play out. They're routine tasks. They're repeatable tasks. They're things that don't require a lot of judgment, things that have very set processes that you can lay out, and they're things that are very repeatable, where you have a process that you know how it runs, and you can describe how it runs, and you can show them exactly the steps that need to be followed in order to be successful. So for example, I have someone who does some email marketing for me. She sets up the emails. I tell her where to get the content. I tell her how to format it, what templates I want to use, when I want it to go out, how I want to get a preview of it, and what happens when I preview it, what's the turnaround on that, and when I want the date to be set. And that happens like clockwork, because we know exactly when they're being sent out, and I don't have to worry about it. She takes care of all the things that lead up to it. I see it before it goes out. I have the opportunity to review it or change it or edit it or give feedback before it goes out. But I'm not the bottleneck, and I'm not required to. And that's a key part. Sometimes when we get into a VA situation, we get to the element of we don't want to let go of control. So we stay in the mix and we become a bottleneck. And that somewhat defeats the purpose. We really want it in a place where we're not the bottleneck. Things happen without us being in the mix. And that's an example. I have many other examples that I use a virtual assistant for, but that's a good one, and it's a good example. So be realistic about what they can do and what their skill sets are. Be clear, and I mean be clear. If you know exactly what needs to get done, that is a great task for a virtual assistant. I want you to send this email or this content. Here's where you get the content. Here's how it works. Here's how I want it formatted. Here's the templates. Here's the audience. All that stuff is laid out, and there's not a lot of judgment or decision making that has to be made on their part. So be super clear about it. If you're just starting with a virtual assistant, take baby steps. And I mean this from the element of don't hand them a process from start to finish and say, okay, I want you to take all of this over. Start with a task that's very discrete, very clearly defined, and has kind of a natural starting points and natural ending points. And what happens is when you take those baby steps, you learn the communication, you learn how to share information back and forth. You're taking less risk because you're not worried about what happens when the email that you sent goes out to everybody because you didn't get a chance to proof it. Well, you know what? The email is going to go to you first, and then you're going to proof it, and then it's going to be sent out. So in that case, what I would do is I would have them format all the email and send it to me, and not have them do the send until I was comfortable that the email they were giving me is accurate, represents what I want it to, that's sourced correctly. Then I would say they could send it, or then I would send it. And I would do that several times until I felt like, yep, every time I get it, I feel comfortable with it. Every time, that's baby steps. I will do the sending until I say, you know what, there's no reason for me to send this because I'm just rubber stamping it. And I still have the check that I can see the email, but I don't have to be the one that sends it. I can now say, if I don't reply with changes, or if I don't go in and edit the email myself, which sometimes is easier because of the minor changes I want, they will send it on a certain date, a certain timing. And that's baby steps, because you don't want to run the risk of something going out that you don't approve, or worried about them doing something incorrectly that you lose control. So baby steps is a very, very important thing. And starting with repeatable tasks. And there's a couple reasons I start with repeatable tasks. One is because you learn fast, and you can learn fast on your part and learn fast on the VA's part. They have multiple opportunities to do the activity and start to get better at it and prove that they have a competency at it. It's also ones that are more highly documented as repeatable tasks, things they do over and over again. So those are great candidates because they're routine, and there tends to be not a lot of decision making because they have to do it every time, and you know how they are doing it. So repeatable tasks are helpful. Test drive several virtual assistants. And I mean that not because you're just willy-nilly trying to find somebody, but because you want to make sure that the relationship with the VA works for you. Is their communication what you want their communication to be? Are they proactive? What's their turnaround? How do they work with the timing and the deadlines you give them? What does it look like is really helpful. So test drive a couple, give them each some work to do that's very similar, but has different needs for you, and see how they turn it around. In very complex tasks, I have actually had VAs and had clients work with VAs to do something that had already been done in the past. Let's say there's a complex spreadsheet that calculates commission structures, and you need someone to do it, but you're really nervous about having someone calculate commission structures incorrectly and people getting paid incorrectly, and it really causing a big problem. So I've actually recommended that they take last month's commission calculations, which you already know all the answers, and you've already done all the calculations, and ask someone to follow the instructions and see if they come up with the same output that you do, and see if their accuracy is the same as yours. And that helps keep the risk down. It helps you identify that they can do it, and you already have the checks and balances, and it lowers your risk of screwing up a paycheck or a payroll in the future until you're comfortable. So having them do something that you already know what the outcome is, it's a little bit of a loss leader, like you're not going to use that work, but it helps you reassure that they know what they're doing. So test drive assistance for sure. Give feedback. Give it timely, give it clear, make very clear what you want to change, how you want something to happen. When I first started the email marketing with an assistant, I didn't like the font on something. I wanted her to check the font on all of the things were the same, because sometimes it wasn't the same. Anything that I wanted changed, I didn't just change it. I actually communicated with them, here are either the changes I was making and why, or here are the changes I want you to make and why. So that they had a learning cycle when things weren't exactly how I wanted them. And typically it was because I didn't communicate that. And so it was an opportunity to communicate what I truly wanted in more detail than I had originally. So give feedback timely and very, very crisply and clearly for going forward. Build in checkpoints in your process that lowers the risk. Build in a checkpoint so that you know when things are going to be done, or if you think there's going to be revisions on something, let them know, I want the first draft by this date so I can see how you're doing, so that they don't spend a lot of time on something that they aren't even close to what you're experiencing or what you want. Particularly on design work, like graphic design work, there you can take a lot of roads in graphic design. If you want someone to design a flyer for you and you have given them some direction but not a lot of direction, you're trusting their design skills, and they come back to you, tell them to come back to you with their very first draft, or with the color selections, or with the format. And then you can say yes or no and redirect them before they invest a lot of time in something that isn't quite what you had envisioned. So build in those checkpoints that make sense for you. I'm a big fan of using triggers. Triggers are things that if my video is uploaded to this particular Google Drive, you can process it. I have drives that have scripts in them, or drives that have content in them, and anytime there's something in that particular drive, they should be processing it, and then it moves into a finished drive or finished folder. So I use triggers so that I don't have to email, I don't have to let them know, hey, I'm ready for you to do work. They know that when things are in a certain place, located in a certain place, whether it's a Google Drive, whether it's a tool, they know to process it. And so the communication is pretty seamless, and I can expect that they will do that. Set schedules, set deadlines, know when the work is going to be done, know what your expectations are. Just like any other person working in your office or working on your team, deadlines, expectations, and schedule, super, super important. I could go on this topic for a long time because I love the virtual assistants. I love what they do. It is an important aspect, but using them and bringing them on board is not a simple task. You have to do it with very direct intention and very deliberately. If you like what you heard here, comment, subscribe below. If you'd like to grab coffee, great. If you want to get on a Zoom as well. If you like what you heard and you want to dig deep into your business and build a plan to go forward, we can do that as well. Your Business Profit, helping you get the business you deserve. Until next time.